This video is sponsored by OneFootball. OneFootball's app makes it easy to keep up to date with transfer news, scores and stats all in the one place. To download the OneFootball app, click the link in the description. The app is free. To watch more of this video, get over and join us on Patreon.
Tuesday, top work again. Said I would use the video. You sent it in last week. So who are the players that we have been linked with that we are excited by? Billy, go on. Who's exciting you?
Well, for me, I know Marcel Brands went to scout both Memphis Depay and Toffee from Lyon. For me, I think Depay would be a great signing. I think the striker role is one that needs to be addressed. I just think he's a really good player, good physically and obviously very good technically. He was in the Premier League before with Man United, wasn't quite good enough, but we saw flashes of what he could do. I actually watched him recently live for Lyon against Manchester City, and he did look much more polished as a player. Seems to have matured and seems bigger physically as well, and seems to be more of an out-and-out number 9 rather than a winger as we saw before. So I think he'd be a great player, 10 goals, 10 assists in the French league this season. And I think he'd be someone who'd be able to bring the other players into play as well. And I think that'd be quite helpful with the likes of Bernard and Richarlison. So I'd quite like Depay, but there are others as well.
Yeah, we will talk about. Depay's an interesting one because Liverpool are getting linked with Depay quite a lot. I mean, yeah. I've been listening through the wall, and they had a couple of shows about him last week. So they think it's a player who could certainly improve them. I think he's a player to improve us. I think Marcel Brands knows all about him. He was at PSV, I think, when they sold him. You're right about going to Manchester United. He wasn't ready for Manchester United, or he wasn't ready for the Manchester United that was there for him. Maybe if it was when Sir Alex was there and they had a pathway. But like you said, they didn't really play him in his position. He had to go to Lyon to almost be the... I think he's the kind of player who likes being the big fish in a small pond, or more to his liking. And we've seen him. He is like one of those. He does like to make a statement. I think
Character.
He reminds me of like Balotelli without being an absolute lunatic. He's got some of the traits. But I watched him play against us a couple of times last season when he was at Lyon. And you could just tell he had the class. He really did. But I think a few clubs will be in for him this summer. And yes, it's great to go and watch him. And yes, it's have the connections. And I do think it would make a statement if we could buy him as well.
I do think it'd be quite an ambitious signing. Maybe too ambitious that it won't happen. But I think it would be good if it did happen. But then again, he does seem like a bit of an outlandish character. And you don't know if that would upset the dressing room a bit, because there aren't many players like that at the moment.
I suppose it comes down to how you look after these players. Some players you bring in, and I think they get too much. But I think if you make them, it doesn't seem to be. I mean, Lyon's not. It doesn't scream.
No,
it doesn't scream like one of those clubs that is going to put up with someone who's going to be a nuisance. I think he's found his home at Lyon. I think he's found somewhere to grow, but he's still only young, really. And I think whoever gets him next will get the benefits of his experience at Manchester United and his experience at Lyon. And I think he's ready to jump back onto the next tier of football. It's just whether we consider ourselves the next tier and whether he considers us the next tier. I think that's the difficult part. Being at Lyon and playing Champions League football for them, I think he'll probably think he is ready to make that leap now.
I agree. Yeah, I just think it's fairly unlikely, just because he is a big name and there are other big clubs being linked with him, and he's already playing Champions League football. Which, well, not sure if they're in the Champions League next season, but they were in the Champions League last season.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll want Champions League football again. But yeah, I think there are other signings which are perhaps more likely.
But it's positive. I mean, you mentioned there they went to watch Lyon. I'm sure they would run the rule over him. It's important that we do that. A player that I really like, and I'm sure a lot of people, some players that might be a little bit unrealistic, is David Neres, Brazilian international, 22 years of age. 8 goals, 11 assists, 2 in the Champions League, 2 assists in the Champions League. Obviously seen him in the semi-final for Ajax. Can play left and right. Would perfectly suit us, really, because I think one of the big problems we had last season was who replaces Richarlison if he's not playing, and who replaces Bernard if he's not playing, and having the continuity that when we've got players out, whether through injury or form, or just whether the manager just wants to change, having someone who could come in and do that. Now, David Neres could definitely do that, but again, you know, you're talking about ambition. He'd be a player who will attract some of the top clubs in Europe if he's available. I mean, he's a player who joined Ajax for Buttons a couple of years ago, really, from Brazil, and I suppose we've got to start trying to get these players at the source. I think that's something we will try and start doing.
Yeah.
Ajax are one of those clubs who can take chances because of the league. Maybe we can't, but I think, you know, he's one who really excites me. He's one we've been linked with. He's one that Richarlison has said he's friends with, and they've got a relationship.